Hello, podcast listener. If you've listened to one or several episodes of JJ Meets World and you're like, man, those guys go off on tangents, you ain't seen nothing yet. This episode of JJ Meets World is brought to you by a movie that came out 25 years ago. It's brought to you by the United States Postal Service. It's brought to you by the state of Louisiana. There's a lot happening in a short amount of time. I hope you enjoy this episode of JJ Meets World. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirls as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
Tucker, I have a new goal in life. Are you ready to hear it? Are you ready for this? Because it's something that I think is kind of big. Like, it's a big deal for sure for me. And really, it would be a big deal for our nation as a whole.
Should I strap in?
Yeah. Oh,
Should
definitely.
I strap in? Brace myself?
Yeah. If you've got more than just something that goes across your lap, but like if you've got some harnesses.
Well, I have our normal JJ Meets World podcast seatbelt on, but I'm going to add a second one.
Okay.
Up to my upper chest because I'm worried about whiplash.
I would like to, at one point, be on a U.S. postage stamp. And I've started doing the research that will require the requirements for being on a postage stamp. And you're gonna find out some interesting facts.
In an official capacity, I'm assuming, because
Correct.
There are services where you could custom make.
Yeah. And that might be
postage.
a good step. Like a good start for me,
Sure.
but like it's certainly not going to. I want you to be able to walk in and have someone be like Forever Stamps and be like, okay, be like, well, we've got flags, characters from Peanuts, JJ Gordon's, and I want the Gordons to be something that they buy. So here are some things. These are rules for being on a U.S. postage stamp, and then we'll talk about some scandal involving it as well. Number 1, dead. A person must be deceased for at least 3 years before being honored on a stamp.
Okay.
Yep.
So you would never get to enjoy this in life.
Correct. This is with the exception of U.S. presidents who only need to be deceased for 1 year. So still dead, but only 1 year. Fictional characters. Fictional characters like Mickey Mouse, Bart Simpson, and Miss Piggy are not subject to the death requirement. This is where the scandal comes in. They released a line of Harry Potter stamps like 15 years ago, and it had like Maggie Smith on it, who's now deceased, but she was still alive at the time, Daniel Radcliffe. And it was like there was this thing about how they're not dead, and they're like, well, they're fictional characters, so they're allowed to do that. Submission. Ideas for stamp subjects should be submitted to the Citizens Stamp Advisory Committee at least 3 years before the proposed issuance year. This is where we are going to get our in. You and I need to find ourselves on like the Citizens Stamp Advisory Committee. It's appointed by the Postmaster General. So we're going to have to do some politicking.
Okay.
Selection. The committee presents all suggestions without attribution and considers each proposal equally. Unsolicited artwork. The Postal Service does not accept unsolicited artwork due to the demands of stamp design and reproduction. Criteria. Stamp subjects should honor extraordinary contributions to American society, history, culture, or environment. This is why you have so many birds on stamps. Right? Lastly, balance. Stamp subjects should include themes of widespread national appeal and significance. Just this last year, the United States Postal Service put out a line of Dungeons and Dragons stamps.
Okay.
Right? And so this really got me thinking, I don't collect stamps, but I have a collection of stamps. I'm not a stamp collector, but I have a collection of stamps because
I see what you're saying.
Right.
Because someone who is a stamp collector is like, well, is it a stamp? I'll collect it. I don't have it in my collection yet.
Right.
But you have a collection that happens to be made of stamps.
If you think of a Venn diagram, like there's JJ's interests in stamps and there's a small sliver that intersects, right? So for example,
So if they did Star Wars Episode 1 stamps, you would be there.
I probably would get it. Now, there were Star Wars stamps, I believe, at some point.
Well, I'm just assuming that since that guided your Diet Pepsi purchasing, then I know if I need to get you to buy something, I need to put Sebulba on it.
Now, interesting you bring that up, because I don't know. Like, to me, it got me to start drinking Diet Pepsi.
Right.
But it didn't keep me there as a loyal brand.
Sure.
And it wasn't taking the place of something else. It's not like I swapped from one to the other. So if FedEx did something with Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, I might be more inclined to start sending packages via their services.
Okay, I was going to say I thought these needed to be United States Postal Service.
They do. But like in your example of like, would I be loyal to some kind of mail delivery system based on their use of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace?
Yeah, I think if you could get Jar Jar Binks and Padme and what's the guy who was the king of the Gungans?
Boss Nass. You would be writing a lot of letters long. I would be.
Yeah.
And I did that with the Harry Potter stamps. I must have spent $300 on Harry Potter stamps so I could send out letters with that. And then it became a thing once they so for this, getting back to my collection, the first piece of stamps I remember collecting was they put out a series of Sesame Street stamps, and one of the stamps was like a Jim Henson.
That makes a ton of sense.
Then there was a Muppet set of stamps. I have a bunch of Canadian stamps because they put Catherine O'Hara, Martin Short, and John Candy on different stamps, right?
So they have different rules.
Canada's like, let's celebrate anything that's great for us. It's not just hockey pucks and maple leafs up here.
Got it.
So I think that there's a really great opportunity to have some stuff, because I also look at stamps and I get that we're trying to honor history and heritage, but there's some weird stuff that they've chosen for stamps that are kind of boring, right? Like, how many times do you have to release a set of poinsettia stamps?
Right. Something with prairie grass on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or American baseball icons. Be like, oh, that's how I want to pay my water bill.
Yep.
Is with a Mickey Mantle. So this is I found this out, the Citizen Stamp Advisory Committee. So this is what I want to get into. These are the members. These are the current members, okay? And one of the guys has almost the exact same fake name that I use when I check in at places. And I'll save that for the last one. Gail Anderson, Peter Argentine, Graham Beck.
That's a great name.
Ivan Cash, Alicia Chang, Dr. Spencer Crew.
There's no way these are real people.
Dr. Cheryl R. Gans, Mike Harity, Trish Jackson, Dr. Joseph L. Kelly, Chair, Roger R. Ream, Dr. Kevin Butterfield.
Those all sound fake.
They do.
Every single one of those names sounds fake.
These are the 12 people who are in charge of things like choosing the Ruth Bader Ginsburg stamp.
These are the guardians of postage.
They are.
You have to go through them.
I don't know if people understand the power that the Postmaster General really holds.
Okay. Is it a lifetime appointment? Or is it a partisan appointment? That just comes in every, I don't know.
That's how does the Postmaster
is that board like the Supreme Court where it's like, well, once you're here, you're here.
Okay. The PMG, the Postmaster General, is selected and appointed by the Board of Governors of the Postal Service. So the Board of Mail, which is appointed by the president.
Okay.
The Postmaster General then also sits on the board. The PMG does not serve at the president's pleasure. It can only be dismissed by the Board of Governors.
Okay. So the Board of Governors is appointed by the president.
Yeah.
But then they don't work. He can't.
It's like the Supreme Court.
Got it. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
But then the Board of Governors, but they don't change over, or does a new president go, hey, you're all gone, there's new ones?
I think that he has the power to do that.
Okay.
And then they have the power to do that. I'm sorry.
That Board of Governors is who decides who the Postmaster General is.
I imagine it's one of those things where maybe you don't like the head of FEMA, right? Like you probably aren't changing that up on a regular basis because there's some institutional knowledge there.
Right.
So the background, this was only established in 1957, the Citizens Stamp Advisory, the CSAC. Established in 1957, serves the Postmaster General of the United States, the PMG, using their collective expertise in history, science, technology, art, education, sports, and other areas of public interest. The CSAC members consider and then recommend stamps to the PMG for final approval. So let's say your Postmaster General was a big fan of roast beef, and you submitted like America's obsession with chicken. He could still go, no, not going to happen.
In the pocket of big roast beef.
The CSAC meets quarterly. Meetings are closed and confidential. The Postal Service's stamp development staff handles all administrative matters and correspondence for the committee. Now, I hope that they don't use email at all. And this is all done through the Postal Service itself, because wouldn't that just be a real kick in the pants?
I would love to not be using email anymore as well. That would be really nice to just not have that in my life anymore.
I'm fascinated by the United States Postal Service because for a while it was one of the most powerful like communication tools in the world.
Right. It's still the cheapest way to send media.
Is it really?
Yeah, because of media mail. Yeah. So, I won't go into it too much, but it started as audio recordings because they want the idea was that you want to encourage people to be communicating and sharing and doing free speech and stuff like that. And so it started with audio recordings, and then basically any other form of media that came through, including, I believe, books, would get classified under this, and you get a discounted rate for mailing it. So if I'm ever going to mail Titanic Fan 97 these tapes, I'm probably going to do it media mail because that's going to be the cheapest way.
That's smart. Yeah. I think that the United States Postal Service is very important, right? Because it's essentially a free service. Like you having a dwelling of some kind allows you to get mail.
Right. It can come to you.
Right.
Yeah, you have to pay to send something out, but not
bingo.
A ton.
Bingo. I mean, and it is going up. You know, the price of stamps, like in our lifetime, has had the biggest jumps it's ever had. To the point of where there's almost no point in getting like the 2-cent stamps anymore because no one's got the old 42 cent and they, upped it to 44. I think making the forever stamps is smart.
Yeah.
So that you buy a stamp, it's good for forever.
Yep.
Right? You can mail it anytime you want. So if someone's like, oh, I'm going to corner the market, I'm going to buy a ton of forever stamps and then sell them like once the inflation goes up,
right.
I'll take care of it at that point. But I do think the U.S. Postal Service is missing out on some really key places that they could be operating right now. Here are some examples. Number one, why is there not a U.S. Postal Service kiosk before you go through TSA in every major airport in the country?
Sure.
Because I remember one time I was flying back from Chicago and we got so late because the public transit was had broken down that we weren't able to check our bags, and I had a practically new bottle of cologne, probably cost me like $80. Oof. And I had to throw it out, and I was such a baby about it too. Like I threw it like hard into the trash can hoping that it would open up, and I was like, that was dumb. But you know what? I did have enough time to hop out of the line and then go and ship it to myself if there had been a kiosk from the United States Postal Service.
Right.
I also think that to some extent people forget oh God, I forgot to mail a postcard to somebody as like a little thank you or whatever. One person mans it. There you go, taken care of. It's a great, it's something you could do that even if you don't, let's say on a given day, there's 100 things thrown away at O'Hare Airport because they don't have, they're not allowed to bring whatever it is through TSA.
Right. I
bet you that at least half of those things, someone would step out of line and ship it to themselves if they knew it was going to cost them $5 to get it sent to themselves.
Totally.
Right? Easy, done,
Yep.
taken care of. I've seen people who've had to throw away pocket knives. Right? And just you forget it's in you because inside of your pocket. Because
I always
it's there
forget
all the time.
when my pocket knife is inside of me.
I mean, we're different people, right? We're recording this during opening hunting weekend, and the closest I've gotten to hunting is Big Buck Hunter. But I think that there's enough going on for that it's important. Number two is the postal delivery person, like our carrier when I was a kid, knew us and was a part of our neighborhood, was a big thing. And I think they switch the carriers around so much now, and I don't necessarily know the purpose for that. But I think that's that's another big thing. I also know that the carriers are being asked to do more today than they ever were before, because back in the day, you maybe delivered one actual parcel or package. And nowadays, I mean, but it's stuff that's getting shipped everywhere all the time. You're constantly having to carry more. I have to imagine like postal carriers can have really bad backs.
Yeah, I would think
from
so,
just how
too.
they carry those things. Now, there's also, I've seen them in movies and I know they exist, but it's a bag that's on like a little cart that you are pushing like in front of you. So it's like a saddle bag, and it's almost like you're walking a dog, but it leads down to a thing with like two little wheels. And so you can use that for carrying. I don't know why they don't use that more.
I don't know. Yeah. I just remember our mail person his name was Red.
Yeah.
And I
Ours was
remember-
Dennis.
And he was missing a finger on one of his hands.
Oh,
And,
God.
And he would always go, huh? Oh, nothing's there. Right? Like he was going to pretend to like do it like you break your finger off idea.
Red's great.
Yeah, Red was awesome. I wonder what happened to him.
That makes me think of Jacob Harchie used to tell a story that I used to love hearing him talk all the time about how the bus that he would take to middle school, his bus driver's name was Wayne. And like when they'd turn into, because he lived over kind of the Prairiewood area where you had all the cul-de-sacs and stuff, when he'd pull into like off one of the main roads, they'd all go, "Curb it, Wayne!" And he would take the curb and like all the kids would bounce like really high.
That's
And
awesome.
so they yell, "Curb it, Wayne!" And the bus doesn't curb it. It turns, and then he pulls over to the side of the road, and he turns around and he goes, "Kids, I'm so sorry, but somebody complained to the city, and apparently it's done damage to the curb, and I can no longer curb it." And the way like Jacob told, he goes like, it was a defining moment in his young life to find out that this was happening. This was a real thing, and they could no longer curb it, Wayne.
Can no longer curb it.
Isn't that great? Isn't that wonderful? Curb it, Wayne.
That's the podcast title.
Curb it, Wayne. There you go. So I also think like, so getting to know the people who are on your route a little bit better, is, and again, we're in an era where people don't really want to know, contactless delivery is big, right?
Yep.
And things like that. But I also think it's important. Another big thing is this has become very popular, and I've always lived in older neighborhoods, so I've never had to deal with this. But like in my sister's neighborhood, which is in the south side of Fargo, they don't have mail delivered to their house. They have mail delivered to a centralized like mailbox system that is in the middle of their like, it's not like it's a closed community or anything like that. This is just the way that they do it. And so that way, your mail carrier gets out once and puts all the mail in and then leaves. The same way when I lived in Chicago, I lived in a high-rise building. And so I think like one postal worker handled 3 high-rise buildings because it took her the bulk of the day to like, get these like 500 residents, like all their mail in their mailbox.
Right.
But that would be something else. And then 3 is let's build up some excitement over stamps. Let's get people excited about some of this stuff. Now, I think by adding the Dungeons and Dragons in there, it's a unique idea. But I will say this. Your average D&D fan is not someone who's going to start sending letters. They are somebody who is shopping exclusively on the Games by James website. They are getting things sent to them. They have certainly set up auto pay for almost everything that they've done. I think just by the nature of Dungeons and Dragons, I feel like those people are very online based, individuals. So let's figure out the thing that's going to get the Tucker Lucases of the world excited and actually make you want to go and buy a stamp.
Do you think that's because the rights holders of Dungeons and Dragons approached the Postal Service and said, we would like to pay for this, right? And so it's not necessarily the Postal Service is going, oh, this will help us sell more stamps, but it's like, oh, if there's ways that all these people can advertise their brand in some way on our stamps. Like, do you think? I'm assuming that it's like D&D is approaching the Postal Service versus the other way around.
I couldn't tell you, because you'd think that at one point these, this Postal Advisory Board is the one that, they're taking submissions in. And so maybe Mattel does a formal submission.
Sure.
I don't think that they are allowed to purchase space on stamps. So I think if anything, maybe they're saying we would be a great choice.
Okay,
you should choose us because we have had a culturally significant impact, and it's a win-win because all these like D&D fans will buy your stamp. So like they can tell them exactly. They're almost like lobbyists, right? And like truth be told, I bought that, right?
So
I bought the D&D.
So what you need is a stamp lobbyist in your pocket.
You do.
You know what? If you want to get on one of these stamps, that's where you need to go, right? That's the power structure.
How many stamp lobbyists do you think exist in the United States? 4?
I believe they are a hidden group. So
right. I mean, there's very few of them.
It's like the baby shrimp in my tank right now. It's like it could be 10, it could be 1 million. It's somewhere in between.
Oh, okay.
It's closer to 1 million.
Like the number of baby shrimp you're saying that are in there?
It's not closer to 1 million. It's closer to like 300 probably.
Do you need to figure out numbers? You would not be good as far as like how many pieces of mail came in today? 1 million. Really? 1 million pieces of mail? No, more like 300. I was thinking of catalogs.
You need to see how tiny these shrimp are though, man. Like they are so small that it is so hard to see them. And then once you start spotting them, then you realize, oh my God, there's like one like every like inch of this tank right now.
Did you hear about the Louisiana Shrimp Festival? Okay, so
something happened?
Yeah, big scandal, huge scandal.
Okay.
So there's this, hold on. I got to tell you the exact name because you'll be like, oh boy, that's corporate synergy if I've ever heard of it. Okay.
How do you prefer shrimp?
I like cocktail shrimp.
Cocktail shrimp, I do too.
Yeah.
I want it like obviously deveined and stuff, but I don't want to have to do it like peeling at all except pulling the tail off.
Okay.
And I usually prefer without cocktail sauce.
See, I like cocktail sauce. I like the spicy. In fact, there's a cocktail sauce called St. Elmo's Fire that has the spiciest horseradish I've ever had. Like, it makes my eyes water and my nose run. I love it, like to the point where like I can't eat another piece.
I'm salivating a little bit right now thinking about this.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you want to come over and have some shrimp? Like not right now.
No,
but like
at some
finish this
point.
episode.
Yeah, at some
and
point.
you can have some of my St. Elmo's Fire. By the way, I brought you a bag of potatoes. These are locally grown potatoes.
Ooh.
Yeah, from Hans Garden.
Okay.
Hughes Garden. No, yeah, Hughes Gardens. So this is a guy I've had on my radio show. Do you want me to throw it to you?
Yeah.
Okay, here it goes. 1, 2, 3, up.
Thank you.
He does Ritter Valley Red. These are the yellow, and then he's got russets. But as a thank you for having me on his show, he dropped off a bag of, I think it was 75 pounds of these bags of potatoes.
Wow.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you, man.
You're gonna benefit from this.
I've actually been wanting to pick up some potatoes, and typically I'll pick up like red or whatever. But so what are organic yellow potatoes best for? What potato dish are they best for?
I would like to suggest a style of potato to you that I don't know if you've ever had before. Have you ever had a Hasselback potato?
I've seen them. I've never had one. I've always wanted one.
So these are nice and small, so you can Hasselback it easily. And then I know you have a proclivity for like your cheese and meat trays and stuff like that.
And butter.
It would be perfect. I think once you get into a Hasselback potato lifestyle, it's going to be hard to get away from it.
Yeah.
I
gotta load up a whole baking tray of them.
Yes. You'd love it.
Damn.
It's
Thank
so
you.
good. Yeah. So enjoy those.
And I'm not trying to get us off topic here, but it is making me think of it. I had the best mac and cheese of my entire life the other day.
Oh, do tell.
I'm still thinking about it. And I'm not a mac and cheese guy at all. I've never been like, oh man, I'm really craving mac and cheese.
Which is weird because it's like it's on every menu, even at places that you wouldn't expect it.
Yeah.
They're like, it's mac and cheese, but it's also got pulled pork on it.
Well, when it's mac and cheese that's made by Claire Lynch at her home.
Yeah.
It is the best mac and cheese you will ever have. She, it was seashell pasta, and she, made her own cheese sauce. I don't know from what. And then added, like, you could add baked broccoli to it or chili crisp. And there was something else. And I said, put all of that in there. And so she put all of it in there. And I sat there, and that bowl of mac and cheese punished so hard in such a great way. I'm still thinking about it. And thinking of these Hasselback potatoes, I think it's with the chili crisp on, putting some chili crisp on it.
Yeah.
Was part of what made it. But I also want to make the cheese sauce that she made. And maybe melt cheese and then drizzle cheese sauce on top of it. You
might be like, Claire, what is it? What's your secret? She's like, it's Velveeta.
It definitely, if there was Velveeta in it, there was other stuff in it too. For
delightful.
Sure. Yeah.
I've thought the next dinner party I host is going to be a baked potato bar. It's just easy, and then people can do it however they want. Yeah.
That sounds so good.
It'll have several types. Oh, I also think I invented something the other day. They're called breakfast nachos.
Okay.
And you might think, I'm pretty sure breakfast nachos exist. Not like this. Not like this. You get a bowl of Cheerios. Okay. Like regular Cheerios. So not the honey nuts. So they're not sweet. They're just, like, and then you put
Not Apple Jacks.
Not Apple Jacks. It's 2 pumps of pump cheese. And then you mix it together and you eat that. Breakfast nachos.
Nope. That's a big old no.
Yeah.
I'm 100% saying
It's perfect.
no to that.
That
is absolutely disgusting and revolting.
No, I'm telling you, I think I think this could be a thing.
That's worse than the room temperature Diet Coke. Like that
breakfast nachos.
Let me put dry cereal with pump cheese.
Yeah.
Did you see we're getting a cheesesteak place?
Yeah. In fact, I was going to say we need to go there and you need to try it.
Oh,
and
we're going.
I'm so worried that I'm already pessimistic that you're going to go and dislike it.
We're going to find out. I mean, their description of how they make their cheesesteaks is on point.
Okay.
So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, I'm hoping they'll have Cheese Whiz, and if not, then I'll do American cheese, and then that will be how I know.
Because it's Whiz Wit or Wit Whiz.
Whiz Wit.
Wit.
So the kind of cheese, and then wit or wit out, meaning with or without onions. And so my typical one is an American wit. Like that's the one I want. But if they offer Whiz Wit, I'm going to go there because that is sort of the base level authentic Philly cheesesteak.
Guess what I'm doing this summer? Spending a week on the Jersey Shore So we're going to fly into Philadelphia. So I'm going to get myself a legit cheesesteak while I'm there.
Philadelphia, there will be tolls going into Philly from New Jersey, but not leaving Philly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Good to know. All right. I want to talk about the Louisiana Shrimp and Petroleum Festival.
What?
Yep. So the Louisiana Shrimp and Petroleum Festival is the oldest chartered harvest festival in Louisiana.
Okay.
So they're like, what is Louisiana known for? You know what? They are known for shrimp and they are known for oil. So let's just combine them together.
Okay.
A scientist this last year went to, because it's sort of like a like how would you say this? There's like a bunch of different vendors and they all have their different style of like shrimp, like serving shrimp.
Yeah.
Hey, there's Cajun shrimp, or this place does it like this. And so the idea is to
a real celebration of shrimp.
It is. And it's to celebrate like the fact that shrimping is such a huge organization in Louisiana. Think Forrest Gump, right?
So
when he goes shrimping.
So like different competitors are coming into, like we have Rib Fest.
Yes. It's just like a Rib Fest, but for shrimp, right? Okay. So, and they all talk about how like, yep, we support the fishermen and like, locally caught shrimp and blah, blah, blah. So the scientist goes and gets shrimp from like 9 of these like 30 vendors, right? Meanwhile, someone's like, hey, can I talk to you about petroleum? And they're like, no, I'm here for goddamn shrimp.
Wait, what is there to talk about?
I only want the shrimp right now, ass. Could you imagine someone just calling you ass?
I want there to be like a petroleum town crier, like petroleum, get your petroleum, and no one's going to them.
All is well, petroleum.
Like, dude, that tastes like shit.
So none of the shrimp were local shrimp based on like the DNA that like he was able to like take out of it. Like these are mostly like shrimp from Asian countries, which is less costly because they don't have the environmental structures and all these things.
So they're being imported. It's not like a strain of that has now become an invasive species in their waters.
Bingo, okay. Right? And it caused a huge rife, because people are going to this thinking that they are somehow supporting. What?
You said it caused a huge rife?
Was it riff?
Rift?
Rift. Yes, a rift.
Like a
raft. There's a raft between these two people, and as you know, rafts can be rather large.
Yeah, that's cool.
Right?
I want to make sure I heard.
And it's a rip raft, so it can go down rapids. So this huge, like, it's a massive scandal, right? It would be like all of us, like us having a Lefse festival and finding out none of the potatoes were riced; they were all from instant potatoes instead.
Yep.
And the organizers of the festival said, well, we don't know how this could happen. And then, so essentially blaming the vendors. And then the vendors doubled back and they're like, they told us we could do this. And so then all of a sudden that town crier for the oil is like, you're like, hear ye. The oil is directly from the Gulf of Mexico. All the oil you're enjoying is directly from the Gulf. The shrimp, not so much. it is just one of those small stories that really it captivated my imagination about how this shrimp festival, Shrimp and Petroleum,
Sure.
could lie to people in such a way.
Yeah. Well, so, here's the thing that so they're not, by doing this, they're not supporting the shrimpers, those who catch the shrimp. They're just celebrating the idea of shrimp, but none of it is actually, besides, these are outside of the area vendors.
Correct. No, a bunch of them are local.
This is Louisiana, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So but there are outside vendors as well.
There are some outside vendors,
Okay.
yeah.
And the
big shrimp.
And the vendors themselves were basically wondering, can we do this? It's more cost effective for us to do this.
Right.
So even local vendors are not buying, they're not sourcing locally.
Right.
Got it. Okay. So it's who do you get upset with if
Right.
you are, and who is getting upset? Is it the local community who just loves shrimp, or is it the people who are like, listen, this was supposed to be for us and we get screwed over, and has that caused an uproar?
I can tell you this much, as someone who loves shrimp a lot, like I do love shrimp. If I ever turned into a sperm whale, the ocean would be, I'd eat all the shrimp in the world, all of it. In fact, I was thinking about going to your house and sucking all those baby shrimp.
Don't piss off any sorcerers.
Right. So I immediately I was like, oh, a shrimp festival? I want to go to that, but I no longer want to patronize this shrimp festival until they right the way. And not that I've ever once in my life, outside of a viewing of the movie Forrest Gump, have thought about the shrimp fisher people out there.
Right.
Not once have I thought about that.
Yeah. What would be the next big one?
The next big shrimp festival or the next?
Think of it like when you've got a town and it's got like their local fantasy sci-fi convention, right?
Uh-huh.
And then people who are going to it religiously be like, hey, this one has lost its way. We're going to go start our own. And then there's like the next branch off of that. That's not nearly as big, but they're trying to, their quote unquote competitive advantage is that, well, we're doing what they said they were doing before. Yep. Does that exist? Is there a place to take your shrimp dollars?
I mean, there probably is. There's a lot of communities that rely on it. I don't know if there's a statewide one like the Louisiana one, but I think the missed opportunity here is not to call it the Great Big Shrimp Festival.
Yeah.
Right? Because oxymorons with the word shrimp. It's the most common, like,
that's
what's an oxymoron? A jumbo shrimp.
Yeah. In the International Shrimp Festival would be a much more apt, right?
Right.
Like, well, technically it's shrimp from all over the place. You can find some here. Is there a mascot?
Like a shrimp covered in oil? Is that what you... No, I mean...
Yeah. Oily the happiest shrimp.
Oily the happiest shrimp. Oh,
not all chemical spills are bad, kids.
The mascot, the logo itself is a shrimp, like not like an actual animal shrimp, like before they've taken the little head off and everything like that.
Right.
Wearing a hard hat at an oil derrick. that is the logo. What is you have called? 291 days, 4 hours, 38 minutes, and 50 seconds until the next Louisiana Shrimp and Petroleum Convention.
Is it roughnecker?
Yeah, like a roughneck.
Who works on an oil rig.
Yeah.
So that shrimp is that.
This is just ridiculous. It literally shows a shrimp swimming around where we are taking the blood of our planet out from areas where they're like, well, at least the oil under the ocean is safe. And we human beings are like, no, it's not.
Yeah,
it's not.
I would assume shrimp are one of the most vulnerable communities in the ocean when it comes to ocean drilling.
Yeah, and the fact that like shrimp cocktail became such a status symbol for a while that I feel like the shrimp just aren't safe no matter where they go.
Yeah, I remember eating like the shrimp cocktails on Fremont. I think it's at Binion's.
Yeah.
Where they're known for like their shrimp cocktails. And it's just like teeny tiny little shrimps that fill up like a wine glass with a little bit of sauce at the top. And then you just basically eat out of that with a fork. It was good, but not having a large shrimp to sort of explode.
Yeah.
That's the
I'm all about jumbo shrimp. Yeah. And like, here's the deal. If you tell me that your wedding that I don't want to go to begin with has shrimp cocktail at it or a shrimp fountain, I am there.
So first of all, I love shrimp. It's an appetizer.
Yeah, 100%.
So I want a jumbo shrimp cocktail. I might even have two. Those are appetizers. That's not
bingo.
when I was working at Videoland. This was summer of 2003. One day I was like, God, I was working like a full day shift of basically sitting behind a counter waiting for like one customer to come in to look at porn. And I'm like, well, I need something to eat while I'm here. I know. I'll go buy a shrimp platter at Hornbachers. So that morning, I buy a shrimp platter at Hornbachers, but it's still frozen.
Oh,
so I'm sitting at Videoland with a frozen shrimp platter that I'm like waiting for them to thaw, and I'm like pulling off a single shrimp every time I can. I fucking eat half of that throughout the day. I had such a sick stomach.
Oh, I was going to say.
I was like, I can't eat shrimp ever again. And I threw the other half away.
Yeah.
And then it was a while before I could do it again.
Did you at least take that bag of garbage out to the dumpster, or did you just like throw it in your office garbage?
No, there was a dumpster. Okay, they would have, there's no way.
I've been places where people throw away like shrimp and shrimp tails, and I'm like, this garbage doesn't get changed out for 2 more days. Yeah. You're a monster.
This was a party platter. This wasn't a small one.
Hey, I don't know what you've got going on after this, but Costco sells like a little shrimp like setup. It's amazing. And the shrimp are big enough. They're not jumbo shrimp, but they're the bigger shrimp. It comes with a little cocktail sauce thing in it already and a couple little lemon wedges if you'd like to put lemon on it. Let's go get one of these for each of us, and then we'll go to our separate homes and eat the shrimp cocktail, and then send each other how many shrimp we were able to eat before our body was like, stop it.
That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information.
We're not cocktailing enough sea creatures.